Things are going to get worse in this country or they're going to get better. I'm hoping that they're going to get better.
From the candidates,
we as Republicans, we need to stand shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, to be the red wall that stops the blue wave.
This is a district they should have held. I'm not so sure we will, but I'm not giving up.
To the measures.
I am interested in making sure my voice is heard.
I refuse to give up my right to vote.
And what it all means for voters. Our KPBS Election Night Special starts now.
Good evening and welcome to our election special on KPBS television and radio. I'm Ebone Monet. We'll bring you tonight's results as they come in. Our live team coverage will bring you updates on the races. Eric Anderson is downtown inside Election Central at Golden Hall. Bria Sridhar joins us from the KPBS newsroom. Andrew Bowen is covering the Republican watch party at the U.S. Grant. Allison St. John is at a watch party in Del Mar with the Mike Levin campaign. And Amita Sharma is also at Golden Hall with our election panel. Art Castanera is publisher of La Prensa San Diego and columnist and podcaster Ruben Navarrete. They'll bring us analysis of the races tonight. We also have more coverage online at kpbs.org. Let's start now with our top race tonight, the race for governor. Democrat Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom is up against Republican businessman John Cox. They campaigned all year to be California's next governor. Let's take a look now at the numbers. Gavin Newsom in the lead with 56% of the vote. John Cox with 44%. Less than an hour ago, Republican John Cox with these numbers spoke to supporters at the U.S. Grant.
This Republican Party will be back in this state. And our path to success is going to be based upon delivering the quality of life that people need so desperately. You know, I look around the country. Larry Hogan, by the way, was reelected by 15 points in Maryland today. And Larry Hogan is the governor of Maryland. Maryland has a Republican registration that's lower than ours. Now, the good news in Maryland for Larry is that he didn't need anywhere near as much money. It's a much smaller state than California. So that's the challenge in California. That's the challenge in gathering the resources to get the message out that the Republican Party stands for improving the quality of life for hardworking Californians. And let me tell you what this party also has to stand for. It has to stand for changing our political system. We have to, the one thing that I'm really proud of is that we took the high road in this campaign.
There are also dozens of competitive House and Senate races tonight. San Diego has two key congressional contests that could help change the balance of power on Capitol Hill. In the race for the 49th District, Republican Diane Harkey went up against Democrat Mike Levin for Darrell Issa's open seat. Here are the latest numbers with 29% of precincts reporting. Mike Levin with 53%, Diane Harkey with 47%. And in the race for the 50th District, Democrat Amar Campa-Najjar faced off against incumbent Congressman Duncan Hunter. This race has become a competitive one after Hunter was indicted for misspending nearly $250,000 in campaign funds. And here are the numbers. With 36% of precincts reporting, Duncan Hunter in the lead with 54%, Amar Campa-Najjar trailing with 46% of the votes. Let's check in now with Amita Sharma at Golden Hall for analysis. Amita.
Thank you, Ebony. I am here with my star panel, Ruben Navarrete, syndicated columnist and podcaster, and Art Castaneras, editor and publisher of La Prensa. I want to go general first and then get a little bit more specific. So today's midterm election was about immigration. It was about health care. It was about race. It was about power. What set this midterm election apart from the others, Ruben?
Right, the simple answer there, I would say, the simple answer would be Donald Trump, who we know was on the minds of between 60 and 70% of voters in both parties. The one thing that we were all able to agree on was that Trump was top of mind. This was very much an election about fear. If you were a Democrat, you pushed the idea that you should be fearful of losing your health care coverage. If you were a Republican, you pushed the idea that you should be fearful of a caravan of immigrants and refugees who amounted to an invasion. So it was very much about fear and about Donald Trump, and those two things seem to pair up well together.
And Art, have you ever seen a midterm election, a general election, so emotionally charged?
No, this was an incredible outcome, and as Ruben says, it was about issues, but it wasn't about issues. It wasn't about solutions to issues. It's usually about health care, and we were arguing about Obamacare and should people have coverage or not. This wasn't in any way about policy. It was just generic scare tactics about immigrants coming across the border or you're going to lose your health care. It wasn't really nuanced about how are we going to solve the problems that we have, which is really unusual. It's usually about who has a better plan. And this was just, are you on this team or are you on the other team?
So moving on to California, it does appear at this point that Democrat Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom is going to be California's next governor. Ruben, what kind of governor is he going to be in this state? Will he be someone who only deals with the elite, or is he somebody who can solve the state's inequality problems?
So Gavin Newsom will decide ultimately what kind of governor he is based on three things. He has three challenges ahead of him. One is to be different than Jerry Brown. He simply can't be the third term of Jerry Brown. As a Democrat, it will be challenging for him to carve out his own way, to see in ways in which he's different from Jerry Brown, make that unique. Secondly, he's got to reach out beyond his base to moderates, to independents, some Republicans. He simply can't be the blue governor in the blue state, appealing only to the blue camp. And lastly, Gavin Newsom has to avoid the Gray Davis trap, which is simply this. When you are the governor of the state of California, immediately people will start talking about you as running for president. A very strong presidential candidate, contender. He's got to avoid that trap.
They're already talking about it. I mean, during the campaign.
That is a troublesome thing because we saw what happened to Gray Davis. Gavin Newsom, if he's smart, I think he is, will do his first term, and then we can talk after that. But just don't lose sight of the task at hand, which is to be a good governor.
So, Art, when Gavin Newsom was mayor of San Francisco back in 2004, he basically let same-sex couples get married, even though it was against the law. What's his big move as governor of California?
Well, it will be interesting. I worked for the legislature for 14 years, and I worked under Gray Davis, and he was afraid to do anything, and which is why the recall happened. What happens that you see with Jerry Brown. Jerry Brown used to be much more liberal. And then when you become the executive, you have to all of a sudden become the check on a very liberal legislature. And so he became Jerry Brown, became much more moderate as he became governor. And that may happen with Gavin Newsom. When he was mayor of San Francisco, he was very liberal, very progressive. Now he may have to throttle that a little bit and become the chief executive.
Okay, we're going to hit the pause button for now. We've got many more topics to come back to. I'm going to throw it back to Ebony, who's going to give us some more results and talk to other reporters and candidates out in the field. Ebony.
Thanks, Amitha. Now let's head out to Allison St. John in Del Mar with the Mike Levin campaign. Allison.
Yes, Lebony, there's a great deal of excitement down here, as you can imagine, with 29% of the votes in. Looks like Mike Levin is leading so far with 53% of the votes. He has said that he will come and address the faithful here as soon as the next round of results come out from the county, and we're expecting those at any minute. Many of the people here have been really fighting for this result. They have been very determined to flip the 49th, and there were volunteers in this crowd who were out until 8 o'clock at night, still banging on doors, making sure that the turnout was good. It's not a complete surprise because Mike Levin did raise almost 4 times as much money as Diane Harkey, and I think he has really plugged the issues of things like health care, gun control, and sustainable energy, and of course this district did initially vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So this is a big shift for this district, which has been a Republican for the last 18 years. We will see what happens. The night is yet young, but at the moment, Democrat Mike Levin is in the lead and the crowd is excited. Back to you, Ebony.
Thank you, Allison. Let's turn now to our local races. In the race for the District 5 County Supervisor seat, San Marcos Mayor Jim Desmond ran against community leader and legislative analyst Michelle Gomez. Here are the numbers. Mayor Jim Desmond in the lead with 59% of the vote. Michelle Gomez with 40% of the vote, and this is with 41% of precincts reporting. And former District Attorney Bonnie DeManis is up against former State Assemblyman Nathan Fletcher for the District 4 County Supervisor seat. Here are the numbers. Nathan Fletcher in the lead with 63% of the votes, and Bonnie DeManis trailing behind with 36% of the votes. Andrew Bowen joins us from the Republican Watch Party. Andrew.
Yeah, Ebony, well, the Republicans here are feeling pretty good about some local races for mayor, city council in San Diego County, and also the state legislature. But most of those races that the Republicans have been winning here have been fairly safe seats, so not a whole lot of surprises on that front. Things are not looking quite as good for them when you look at the national races in the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, earlier, I did speak with Diane Harkey, the Republican candidate in the 49th Congressional District, North San Diego County and Southern Orange County, and I asked her how she was feeling tonight, and here's what she said.
It was a ground game for us. We worked really, really hard on the ground, and I think we had good early returns, and I think they'll show tonight. It's all in the election day voting, and so we're cautiously optimistic about this. I think it was a great seat. It was a Republican +5. The National Party chose not to get involved, so we were on our own here. They did other states besides California, and that's very disappointing to me because this is a key district for them. But people don't understand California. I do. So I push hard.
And now, Ebony, you can hear a bit of resentment in her voice there that the National Party didn't step up and spend more money here to keep this district in Republican hands. Now, earlier today, the incumbent in this district, Darrell Issa, also a Republican, went on TV, and even before the polls closed, he called this race for the Democrat Mike Levin. I asked Harkey what her reaction was to that. She said she texted Issa and said that was not helpful. Back to you, Ebony.
Thanks, Andrew. Now to more results. In the race for the 76th State Assembly District, 2 Democrats are competing for the open seat that was held by Republican Rocky Chavez, journalist and community advocate Elizabeth Warren, and Encinitas City Council member Tasha Burner-Horvath. Here are the numbers. Tasha Burner-Horvath is in the lead with 56% of the votes. Elizabeth Warren trailing behind with about 44% of the votes, and this is with 32% of precincts reporting. San Diego voters also weighed in on the fate of the stadium site in Mission Valley. 2 competing ballot measures offered 2 different developments. Measure E backed a soccer city development plan, transforming the site into a professional soccer stadium and more. Here are the numbers. The no votes in the lead with 72%, yes votes with 28%, and this is for Measure E, Soccer City. And Measure G would allow San Diego State University to expand into Mission Valley, creating SDSU West. Here are the numbers for Measure G. Yes votes leading with 57% of the votes, no's with 43%, and that is with 18% of precincts reporting. We'll turn now to Eric Anderson, who's at Golden Hall. Eric.
Ebony, we are here at Golden Hall. It's kind of the place you go in San Diego on election night to find out what's going on. You were talking about the 2 measures concerning the Mission Valley developments. We're going to get to those measures in a moment, but I just want to show you real quickly what goes on here. This room fills up with people during the course of the night, and they all come to see one thing pretty much. It's those 3 boards that you're looking in the background. They're kind of the big boards, the tally boards. People can stand there and watch their races as the results come in. And one of those races, actually a couple of those races that they have been watching tonight, as you mentioned, was the Mission Valley development measures. That's Measure E, which is the measure to develop Soccer City. It was housing, it was commercial space, a sports stadium. It was a number of different items, all designed to lure a Major League Soccer team here. And Measure G, which is the San Diego State University West proposal to basically create an auxiliary campus in the area that would have a sports stadium, a river park, housing, and classroom space. Now, those issues looks like very much so on the voters' side. They've decided to say no to the Soccer City issue, and there's the Measure G is passing. Earlier in the evening, we had a chance to talk to Haney Hong about these two measures, and he says even though at the end of the night this thing will likely be resolved, the issue itself, what's going on in Mission Valley, may still have some time needed to find out what's going to happen there.
Our analysis shows that it would be positive fiscal impact if Measure G goes through and the sale is executed. And it's a positive fiscal impact for the city. But I think there are some questions that, I mean, even if any of these pass, G or E, or if there was no on both, the issue is not, it's not done. There's many steps that are going to have to come into play. There's CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, that has to happen before the sale of the land to San Diego State. That could be a very long process. So this is going to be an issue that it's even if the voters make a decision tonight, there's still much more that will need to get done.
That is Haney Hong from the San Diego County Taxpayers Association talking about Measure E and Measure G, the two measures that were designed to kind of reshape the eastern end of Mission Valley here in San Diego. We'll be tracking those measures through the evening. We'll come back to Golden Hall to give you more updates as we go along. And now back to you, Ebony.
Thank you, Eric. We have more numbers. California voters had a chance to decide on the fate of the gas tax. Proposition 6 called for the repeal of the state tax used to fund road repairs and other projects. Here are the latest numbers for Proposition 6. The no votes leading with 55% of the votes thereabout, and the yes votes with about 46%. And this is with 26% of precincts reporting. In California's Senate race, incumbent Dianne Feinstein competes against fellow Democrat Kevin De Leon. Here are the latest numbers. Incumbent Dianne Feinstein in the lead with 54% of the votes. Kevin De Leon with 46% of the votes, and this is with 26% of precincts reporting. And one more look at the race for the 50th district between incumbent Congressman Duncan Hunter and Democrat Amar Campanajjar. Here are the numbers. Duncan Hunter hanging on to the lead with 54% of the vote, and Amar Campanajjar trailing behind with 45% of the vote, and this is with 36% of precincts reporting. Now we'll go to Priya Sridhar inside the KPBS newsroom. Priya.
Hey, Ebony. Well, the big news right now being that the Democrats are projected to regain control of the House. They were hoping to capitalize on districts like the 50th that you just mentioned that had historically gone Republican but encompassed a lot of suburban areas that they thought they could bring over to their side. Now, while we don't know the final results of the 50th just yet, the Democrats as a whole needed to get 23 seats to regain the House. So let's take a look at where things stand right now for the House elections. As you can see right now, there are 183 Republicans and 200 Democrats who took their respective districts. Either party needed 218 for the majority. We still have major areas of the country, especially here on the West Coast, where races haven't been officially called. Half a dozen of those were right here in California. Some of those close races that were virtually toss-ups, according to most analysts, were districts 10, 25, 39, 45, 48, and 50th, as we just mentioned. Now, let's move over to the Senate side. Let's take a look at that map. It looks like, as expected, Republicans will retain control. We have 43 Democrats and 51 Republicans as of right now winning their elections. Some of the highly anticipated results came from Texas, where incumbent candidate Republican Ted Cruz beat Democrat Beto O'Rourke in an extremely competitive race with 51% of the votes. Arizona and Florida also had races that are too close to call right now. It looks like the Republican candidate Martha McSally is leading Arizona right now by 0.5%, and Republican Rick Scott from Florida is winning by 0.7%. Now we're going to continue to monitor those races and keep you updated. Reporting from the newsroom, Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
Thank you, Priya. Turning to more returns in the race for District 2 City Council seat here in San Diego, incumbent Lori Zaff faced off against Dr. and Professor Jennifer Campbell. And here are the numbers. Jennifer Campbell in the lead with 55% of the votes. This is with 9% of precincts reporting. Lori Zaff with 44% of the votes, about 45. Let's take a look at San Diego City Council races. Attorney and civil rights advocate Monica Montgomery challenged incumbent Myrtle Cole in the District 4 City Council race. Here are the numbers. Monica Montgomery in the lead with 52%. Myrtle Cole trailing behind with about 48%. Very close race there, and this is with 23% of precincts reporting. In the District 6 City Council race, incumbent Chris Cate competed against broadcaster and environmental advocate Tommy Howe. Here are the numbers. Chris Cate in the lead with 58% and Tommy Howe with about 42% of votes, and this is with 15% of precincts reporting. And the District 8 seat is an open race. Incumbent David Alvarez has been termed out. Alvarez's staffer Vivian Moreno and San Ysidro School Board member Antonio Martinez are competing for the open seat. Here are the numbers. Vivian Moreno with 55% of the vote. Antonio Martinez with 45% of the vote, and this is with just 19% of precincts reporting. If you are just now joining us on KPBS radio or TV, this is live coverage of the 2018 election. Now let's hear from San Diego voters about why they're voting today.
Hi, my name is Gary Hill. I'm from Ohio, and I'm here to vote today to support our president in the way things are running and put my vote in for the people.
Hi, my name is Josiah Irwin. I'm from Rancho Bernardo, and I'm voting because it's my God-given right to do so.
Hi, I'm Chris Melendez, and I'm from Lakeside, California. I'm voting because I think a lot's at stake, and I feel like I've never voted before, so I feel like I set the sideline and I let other people decide for me. So I wanted to be involved now.
Hi, my name is Angela Nurse. I'm a professor at University of San Diego, and I'm voting because of issues of race and ethnicity. I'm concerned with issues of citizenship. I'm concerned with issues of rising nationalism and what I perceive to be fascism, and I am interested in making sure my voice is heard.
We'll head out now to Eric Anderson at Golden Hall. Eric?
Thank you, Ebony. We are here at Golden Hall, and joining me is Nathan Fletcher, who becomes the only Democratic member now of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, I know it's a great night. You know, I'm humbled, I'm honored. The voters give a clear and compelling message. They're ready for change. They're ready to see their county go in a more progressive direction, and with the election behind us, I'm excited to get to work.
Is it expected when you saw the results coming in during the primary? There were a lot of Democratic votes in your column or in the other Democrats as well.
Well, I think what you see happening not only in my district but in other districts across the country is the voters are rejecting the politics of hate and division. They're rejecting the Trump approach. You know, we can't forget we had a county that voted to join Donald Trump's lawsuits against the state of California, and I think that was a defining issue in this campaign. But more than that, the voters want to see investment in mental health. They want to see investment in homeless. They want to see investment in housing. They want to see our county focused on clean air and clean water. And those are the priorities of the voters of San Diego. Those are my priorities. And I think it's time the county start moving in that direction.
Nathan Fletcher is going to be going to the County Board of Supervisors. We want to talk to the woman standing to your right, Lorena Gonzalez. You also managed to get another vote of confidence for the State Assembly.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm going back to Sacramento and see what we can do for the constituents of San Diego and South San Diego in particular.
And California was very blue this evening. What does that do for you in terms of what happens at the state level?
It's really blue, but there's some tough issues we have to tackle, one being poverty in California, and that's something that's going to take a lot of Democrats coming together and saying, how do we help specifically the working poor, and how do we redefine ourselves as Democrats, and as we work on issues that are important to all of us, the environment and women's right to choose, and things we all agree on, equality. How do we also embrace that issue of ensuring that those who work hard for a living can live here in California?
Thank you very much for your time, both of you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
We are here live at Golden Hall, and we'll be back with more in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Eric. Proposition 6 calls to repeal California's gas tax hike. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen explains.
Last year, state lawmakers decided to boost transportation spending by about $5 billion per year to repair roads and bridges and invest in public transit. To pay for all that spending, the legislature decided to raise the gas tax by about 12 cents. They also raised the diesel tax and vehicle registration fees. The backlash from conservatives was swift, which brings us to Prop 6. If it fails, the gas tax and vehicle fee hikes would remain, and the state can continue to spend the extra money on roads and transit. Opponents to Proposition 6 say investing more in roads and transit now will save taxpayers money in the long run. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Let's take a look at the numbers for Proposition 6 so far to repeal the gas tax increase. The no votes in the lead with 55%, the yes votes trailing behind with 45% of the votes. We're going to send it now back to Amitha Sharma, who is at Golden Hall with more analysis. Amitha.
Thank you, Ebony. I'm here with syndicated columnist Ruben Navarrete and editor and publisher of La Prensa, Art Castaneras. Let's turn our attention to the 50th Congressional District, where it appears that Republican incumbent Duncan Hunter is fending off a challenge by Democrat Amara Campa-Najjar. Hunter has been criminally indicted for allegedly misusing his campaign funds. He called the indictment a conspiracy by the deep state to knock off conservatives. He said it was all politically motivated. Did that strategy work, Ruben?
You know, it may be. I would joke before, being indicted isn't what it used to be in the Trump era, and even before that in the Clinton era. I mean, voters have gone to the polls in the case of Hillary Clinton and said, you know, she may be under investigation by the FBI. That's okay. I like her anyway. And under Trump, you have one scandal after another. It hasn't dissuaded his supporters at all. And I think there is this sense that he pushed it, Duncan Hunter pushed this narrative that somehow he was a victim of a politically motivated indictment, and enough people may have bought that line.
Art, race also seeped into this campaign. Campa-Najjar was kind of vilified for his religion. He was also criticized for his connection, his grandfather's connection to a Palestinian group who was called a socialist. What impact did that kind of talk have on this race?
This was by far the most racist campaign in the country. And in a district like that, which is heavily Republican, heavily Democrat, or heavy Trump territory, it was horrible for this guy. I've met him before. I don't know him very well, Amar. He says he's a Christian, but yet he was portrayed as a Muslim. His grandfather died 16 years before he was born, and he's being held, he's being tainted by his grandfather's legacy. This guy worked in the White House for Obama. He worked in the federal agency, passed a background check by the FBI that probably Duncan Hunter can't pass today. So when Duncan Hunter says it's a witch hunt by the deep state, there are 435 Congress members, and how many are under indictment? One guy in the whole country.
Very quickly, Ruben, if Hunter wins and is subsequently convicted, what happens?
We don't know. Ultimately, what may well happen is if he is forced from office by the leadership, by the Republican leadership, and another Republican is put in his place, there may be some who think that's a victory, they count it as a victory because they were able to keep the party hand on the control on that seat. But ultimately, it's going to be a loss. It'll be a very serious loss for the GOP because they have sacrificed character at the altar of political expediency. And I'd be saying the same thing if it was a Democrat. The idea that you could put into office somebody who's been indicted, who's committed all these problems, who will be run out of office in short order, who has a court date coming up, is outrageous.
Very quickly, we've got to talk about the 49th Congressional District. This was the district where Republican Diane Harkey and Democrat Mike Levin are seeking to replace Darrell Issa. Levin is leading. Republicans outnumber Democrats in this district. Why was this district so competitive?
It was really about Trump. If Darrell Issa would have stayed, he probably would have been reelected. But when you have an open seat, and with the amount of votes the Democrats got, especially because it's divided between the two counties, San Diego and Orange County, it was very difficult for Harkey to win that district. And she didn't get any help from the Republican Party. The national caucus left her hanging. She had to defend the district on her own, and it looks like she's going to lose.
We're going to leave it there. We'll be back for further analysis. Ebony, I'm turning it over to you.
Thanks, Amitha. This is live coverage of the 2018 election on KPBS TV and radio. You can find results on all the races at kpbs.org. We have live team coverage. Eric Anderson is inside Election Central at Golden Hall. Bria Sridhar is standing by inside the KPBS newsroom. Andrew Bowen is at the Republican Watch Party. Allison St. John is with the Mike Levin campaign in Del Mar. And Amitha Sharma is also downtown at Golden Hall with columnist and podcaster Ruben Navarrete and Art Castaneras, publisher of La Prensa San Diego. They'll bring us more analysis of the races tonight. Taking another look at our top races. In the race for governor, Republican businessman John Cox has conceded the race to Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. And here are the numbers. Gavin Newsom with 56%, John Cox with 44%. There are dozens of competitive House and Senate races tonight. San Diego has two key congressional contests that could change the balance of power on Capitol Hill. In the race for the 50th District, Democrat Amar Campa-Najjar is competing against incumbent Duncan Hunter. This contest made national headlines after a federal indictment accused Hunter of misusing campaign funds. Here are the latest results. Duncan Hunter with the lead at 54%, Amar Campa-Najjar with about 46% of the votes, and that is with 36% of precincts reporting. And there's another open race for the 49th District. That's after Darrell Issa announced he's retiring after serving 9 terms. Republican Diane Harkey faces Democrat Mike Levin. Here are the numbers. Mike Levin in the lead with 53%, Diane Harkey trailing behind with 47%. We'll go now to Allison St. John with the Mike Levin campaign in Del Mar. Allison.
Yes, Ebony. Well, there is a lot of excitement here, but we've only had that one round of results so far. So Mike Levin has promised that he will come down and speak to the folks who are gathered here when the San Diego Registrar of Voters releases the next round of results. So far, 29% of the vote. That is a pretty significant proportion, but not enough for him to feel confident enough to come down and talk to the faithful who are gathered here. Many of these people have been campaigning all day and only just arrived in time for this party at 8 o'clock because they were out there campaigning for him. The Flip the 49th has been an extremely powerful campaign for about 2 years. They wanted to get Darrell Issa out, and then they wanted to get a Democrat in, and everybody here is waiting on tenterhooks to see whether these results will hold. While I have you, I was just going to mention that the blue wave does not seem to have reached to the North County mayors. The mayors, there are 6 North County mayors running, and some of them were being opposed by Democrats, but at this point, all the incumbents appear to be winning. Matt Hall in Carlsbad has 50% of the vote. He was being challenged for the first time by a Democrat. Sam Abed in Escondido, it's pretty close. It's a very tight race, so we don't know yet, but it looks like he is still ahead. And the other incumbents, Steve Voss in Poway, Judy Ritter in Vista, are all still ahead. And in San Marcos, to replace Jim Desmond, we have ahead in the polls Rebecca Jones, who is the Republican in that race. In Encinitas, we have the only Democratic mayor in North County. That's Catherine Blakespeare, and she is well ahead. So that's a quick update on what's happening in North County tonight. Back to you, Ebony.
Thanks, Allison. We're following 2 supervisor races in San Diego County. In the race for District 5, community leader and legislative analyst Michelle Gomez is running against San Marcos Mayor Jim Desmond. Here are the numbers. Jim Desmond in the lead with about 60% of the votes. Michelle Gomez with 40% of the votes, and that's with 41% of precincts reporting. And former state assemblyman Nathan Fletcher and former district attorney Bonnie DeManis are competing in the District 4 race. Here are the numbers. Nathan Fletcher with the lead at 64% and Bonnie DeManis with just 36% of the votes, and that's with 15% of precincts reporting. Let's head out now to Andrew Bowen at the Republican Watch Party. Andrew.
Yeah, Ebony, well, just a short while ago, Carl DeMaio spoke on Proposition 6. Now, this is the measure that would repeal the increase to the state gas tax and vehicle fees. It sounded a lot like a concession speech. Now, he said that this isn't over. He accused the politicians in Sacramento of putting a misleading ballot title on the ballot, but it does appear that he's accepted at least that Prop 6 is headed for defeat this evening. On that race for County Board of Supervisors, as you mentioned, now Nathan Fletcher, as you said, does have a fairly strong lead at this point. We haven't seen Bonnie Dumanis, the Republican candidate in that race, around here so far, but we will certainly watch for her. And, if Fletcher is able to hold on to that lead, then I think that's a reflection of how this district has changed over the last couple decades. It started as a fairly Republican district in the 90s, and then now as the incumbent, Ron Roberts, is termed out, the race, we get to kind of take a fresh look at it. Now that Democrats have a very strong plurality there, the district has shifted very much in their favor. And I think it also reflects the spending and the fundraising in this race. Fletcher outraised Dumanis significantly, and of course the County Democratic Party spent very heavily on his behalf, and the County Republican Party did not match that spending on the behalf of Bonnie Dumanis. Back to you, Ebony.
Thank you, Andrew. Let's check in now with Amitha Sharma at Golden Hall for more analysis. Amitha.
Thank you, Ebony. I'm here with podcaster and syndicated columnist Ruben Navarrete and La Prensa publisher and editor Art Castaneras. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Let's talk about Measure G and E. It looks like Measure G is headed for victory. That would require the city to sell 132 acres at the Mission Valley Stadium site to San Diego State University. Why do you think this measure did better than Measure E, which would have leased a site to a firm with the idea that a professional soccer team might be brought to San Diego?
Right, good question. So I think the E initiative, Measure E, struggled because we have a bad aftertaste left over about the Chargers. We have a bad taste about professional sports. We have a bad taste in our mouth about playing in the hands of moguls who own sports teams. Whereas with Measure G, this was benefiting a university that we all have a lot of affection for, connection to. The alumni is very strong. What a great consortium they put together in favor of G. All the various city leaders. That was all, I think, a factor as well. And lastly, just an overall sense that the G campaign was pretty well run, and the E campaign really couldn't get off the ground at the same level.
Okay, turning our attention to Proposition 6 would have repealed a 12-cent per gallon tax. Looked like it's tanking. The tax is meant for road and transit construction. Voters are basically saying they're okay with this tax, aren't they?
Right, yeah. It's about $5 billion a year. When you look at it in the context of the state budget, which is almost $150 billion a year, it really doubles the amount of money that's allocated for highways and roads. And people like to drive, and we drive a long way to work. And this will help for traffic congestion, and people are voting to keep it.
Ruben, Prop 10, this would allow cities to explore the idea of rent control. It looks like that is going down in defeat, yet polls show that Californians do want rent control. What happens?
This is tough. A lot of discussion about this. I think a lot of folks have come to the conclusion that California is a wonderful state, my home state, becoming increasingly unaffordable for many people. And I think that getting back to the challenges for Gavin Newsom and other state leaders, they've got to tackle the idea of affordability in the state of California. I'm not sure, given that backdrop, why this rent control measure didn't do better, other than maybe a general sense that this is not an area that we want to see government intervene into in terms of telling people how much they can rent their properties for. So those two things were really in tension with one another. And it looks like maybe the private ownership group won.
And now we're going to make a leap over to the 4th District Supervisor's race. This is between former District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis, a Republican, and former Assemblyman, a Democrat, Nathan Fletcher. So it looks like Fletcher is trouncing Dumanis. I think right now Fletcher has 63% of the vote compared to Dumanis' 36% of the vote. This is an area, this district covers central San Diego. It now contains 2 Democrats for every Republican. Did Dumanis ever stand a chance?
I don't think so. I think that she has a lot of crossover appeal because she's openly gay. She's done a lot of things in the Asian community as well. But Nathan Fletcher now is a Democrat, used to be a Republican. In that district, in this midterm election, I think the tide was just too strong.
And Ruben, Fletcher is married to Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez. She has access to a vast network of donors. How much did she help him in this race?
I think a great deal. This is an important power couple for San Diego. One of these two individuals will be mayor one day. I think they have to sort that out at the dinner table in terms of who's going to do it. But, you know, Nathan Fletcher, I think, benefited from the fact that Bonnie Dumanis is like this house guest who stayed too long. You know, she's been in office for too long. She overstayed her welcome as judge, as DA. The idea that she needed another job, another enhancement to her resume, I think ultimately did not set well with voters. So aside from the Democratic issue, a sense that new blood might be called for.
Okay, we're going to stop it there just momentarily. I'm turning it back to you, Ebony.
Thank you, Amitha. We have two Democrats competing in the California Senate race. Kevin De Leon is challenging incumbent Dianne Feinstein, and here are the numbers in that race. Dianne Feinstein with 54% of the votes, and Kevin De Leon with 46%, and this is with 29% of precincts reporting, and this is for the U.S. Senate race. Voters are also deciding the fate of the stadium site in Mission Valley. They're choosing between two competing ballot measures. Measure G backs the SDSU West Development Plan that would allow San Diego State University to expand into Mission Valley. Here's what voters say so far. 57% say yes to Measure G, SDSU West, and no to Measure G. This is 44% are the no votes. And the Soccer City Development Plan is at the heart of Measure E. It calls for transforming the site into a professional soccer stadium. Here are the results so far, with 72% of voters voting no on Measure E, and this is for Soccer City. We'll go back now to Eric Anderson at Golden Hall. Eric.
Thank you, Ebony. We are here at Golden Hall. We've been tracking a lot of the local measures that are on the ballot tonight, but we're also tracking what's going on nationally. And it looks like one of our local Congress people will be joining the majority in the House in the next session. What do you think about that?
Well, that's exciting because, you know, when you can determine the agenda, you can really accomplish things in a very different way than when we've been able to do. I'm excited, and we've got some very serious people that have been elected.
What do you think that's going to do to change the relationship that Congress has had with the president?
Well, I'm hopeful that the president wakes up and realizes that, you know, he's just one organ of government, and that working with the Congress is going to be much better for him in the long run and the people that he supposedly cares about. We think we can do that, and I think the burden is always on the majority to come together and to work across the aisle. Unfortunately, I think we had so many obstructionists in the last term that people were really not interested in doing that. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that, and because we have so many really serious people that have been elected with great backgrounds, they're not coming in to, you know, fool around. I mean, they want to get things done.
Do you think it's going to be a problem to convince the other side, the Republicans, to work with the Democrats on legislation?
Well, I'm hopeful that people could see that that's the only way that their constituents are going to be helped as well. There's just no sense in our fighting through this. You can't agree on everything, but I think we can find some common ground. You know, we always could. And it's just been really a big disappointment, I think, to the American people that that has not happened in this last term.
Susan Davis, Democratic lawmaker in the House of Representatives, who will likely be a member of the majority party in the House when the next session starts in January. And we're going to be tracking all of the other local races that are happening here in San Diego County as the night goes on. Back to you, Ebony.
Thank you, Eric. Now for more results in the race for Escondido mayor, businessman, and Palomar Community College trustee Paul McNamara challenged incumbent Sam Abed. Here are the numbers. Sam Abed in the lead with 52% and Paul McNamara with 48%. In the race for Carlsbad mayor incumbent, Matt Hall competes against councilmember Corey Schumacher. Here are the numbers. Matt Hall in the lead with 48%, Corey Schumacher with 42%, and that is with 29% of precincts reporting. If you are just joining us on KPBS radio or television, this is live coverage of the 2018 election. Now let's check in with San Diego voters. We wanted to know what motivated them to head to the polls.
Why'd you vote today? I voted today because I wanted to make sure that my voice was heard, as well as the voice of my community and people who are similar to me. And I wanted to just make sure to stand up for them and have their voice be heard as too. Why'd you vote today?
Because that's my given right as a citizen, and I believe that one vote can make a difference and will make a difference. And if we didn't have that attitude, then there would be no change and betterment of society.
Why'd you vote today?
Because it's my right, it's my duty, and I feel that we have to make decisions regarding our country and our government. And if you don't vote, you can't really complain about what's going on in the country. So my people, I'm from the South, so my people fought for certain rights, my grandparents and things, that they didn't have those rights. So I refuse to give up my right to vote.
Let's check in now with Priya Sridhar inside the KPBS newsroom. Priya.
Well, Ebony, the big news of the night is the Democrats regaining control of the House. The Democrats needed to win 23 seats to flip the House. We do have some new numbers coming in right now. Let's take a look at where things stand. Now, as you can see, we have 206 Democrats winning in their respective districts and 188 Republicans. Either party needed 218 seats for the majority, but some analysts are predicting that the Democrats could win even more than those 23 seats they needed. We still have a number of toss-up districts here in California that haven't been called just yet. Now let's move over to the Senate side. As many predicted, the Republicans will retain control of the Senate, as you can see from our map. The latest numbers right now show that 51 Republicans won their elections and 42 Democrats. Now we're going to continue to monitor those results, especially here in California. But for right now, back to you, Ebony.
Thanks, Priya. Proposition 10 deals with the future of rent control in California. KPBS reporter Taryn Mento explains.
In 1995, California passed a law that banned cities from expanding rent control. Now, under the law, cities can't apply rent control to units built after 1995 or on a single-family home. Cities also can't limit how much a landlord raises the rent on a rent-controlled unit after a tenant moves out. A defeat of Prop 10 means these current restrictions will stay in place. This is a win for property owners because many claimed an expansion of rent control policies would hurt investment in rental properties. But this is a big blow to Prop 10 supporters who say rent is just too high and people can't stay in their homes. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
And here are the numbers for Proposition 10. The no votes with 65%, the yes votes with 35%, and this is for rent control with 30% of precincts reporting. Now on to Measure W in National City, which also deals with rent control. The measure would limit rent increases to 5%, and it would only allow evictions under certain circumstances. Here are the numbers for Measure W. 57% voting no and 43% voting yes, and that's with 16% of precincts reporting. One of the biggest supporters of the gas tax repeal measure is here in San Diego. Carl DeMaio spoke to supporters about 10 minutes ago. Here's what he had to say.
For every voter in California who wakes up tomorrow and looks at the newspaper or turns on the TV and asks that question, what the hell happened? I'll tell you what happened. California politicians have been stealing our gas tax funds for years, and tonight we've learned that they've stolen our votes as well. Make no mistake about it, California politicians defrauded California voters of an honest vote on Proposition 6.
Let's take our last look at our top races. In the race for governor, Republican John Cox is running against Democrat Gavin Newsom. Here are the numbers. Gavin Newsom with 56%, John Cox with 44%. In the race for the 49th Congressional District, Democrat Mike Levin and Republican Diane Harkey are competing for the open seat. Here are the numbers in that race, the 49th District, 53% rather, for Mike Levin and 47% for Diane Harkey. And in the race for the 50th District, incumbent Duncan Hunter is facing a challenge from Democrat Amar Campa-Najjar. Here are the numbers. Duncan Hunter with 54%, Amar Campa-Najjar with 46%. We'll send it now back to Amitha Sharma, who is at Golden Hall with more analysis. Amitha.
Thank you, Ebony. I'm here with Ruben Navarrete, podcaster, syndicated columnist, and Art Castaneras, editor and publisher of La Prensa. I want to get some closing thoughts from both of you gentlemen. It appears that the Democrats have regained control of the House of Representatives. Will the second half of President Trump's term look different from the first half?
Yes, this is actually a good thing for President Trump as follows. He has a foil now. He didn't have a foil before. We the media, had to be his foil, because when you have the Republicans controlling both houses of Congress and the White House, every time something went wrong, he didn't have anybody to blame but the media. Now when things go wrong, the president will be able to blame those Democrats in the House of Representatives. So he'll have somebody to deflect that criticism to. I don't ultimately know how it'll affect his agenda, but I think he will welcome the ability to be able to have that punching bag and to focus on those Democrats.
And Art, the Republicans maintained power in the Senate, even made a gain or two. Who was more energized? Which party was more energized today?
I think the Democrats overall were more energized, and that's why you see the amount of seats that they won across the country. But I think Republicans also came out to defend a lot of seats. They picked up a couple seats in the Senate, the race in Florida for governor, the race in Georgia for governor. Those were two seats that were close races, but the Republicans held on. So I think both were, for different reasons, energized. But the Democrats came out ahead by taking over the House of Representatives. And I think it will, back to the first question, change the second 2 years of Donald Trump's first term. And potentially change whether or not he has a second term. I think that now you're going to see what the Republicans did to Obama, and you saw all the investigations of Benghazi and all the different hearings and subpoenas that, by the way, Darrell Issa was part of here in San Diego. It'll be on the other side this time.
Okay, and segueing to California, the governor's race. California has been at war with the federal government. It has sued the feds 44 times over issues like immigration, the environment, internet policy even. With Gavin Newsom at the helm, does that war intensify?
I don't think it needs to intensify, because Javier Becerra, the Attorney General, is the person who brought all those lawsuits, and he's very capable in that role of continuing that fight. Gavin Newsom has a choice now. Should he be a Me Too, seconding what Becerra has done, or carve his own way, as Art said earlier, in a more moderate way, to say he's got his eye on a much bigger prize, which is a future presidential run?
That's exactly right. Yeah. Starting tonight, he starts to think about when he runs for president. I don't think it's if. I don't think it's if he'll run. I think it's when he'll run.
Yeah, from the middle.
Well, Gavin Newsom likes to say that California, is larger than 137 other countries. It has the world's 5th largest economy, and that the world is looking to California for leadership. Is that true?
I don't think so. I think that's overplayed. It is the 5th largest economy in the world, but it's still a state in the United States. We don't do direct treaties with other countries. We don't do trade agreements directly with other countries as much as the United States does. But we do have a lot of important trading partners around the world. So California is an important part of an economy, but it's not a leading indicator of policies.
California has this notorious affordability crisis. Does that get solved? You've got a Democrat, you had one with Governor Brown as well, but a Democrat in the governor's mansion, and you've got a democratically controlled state legislature. Do you see this issue getting solved, or at least diminished?
It's very difficult. If you want to run for president or run for anything, you need money. And Gavin Newsom's going to need a lot of money to run for president if he decides to do that. And that money's going to come from people who own property, who don't want you to tell them what they can charge for their property. So this idea somehow that the populists are all on the Democratic side and the capitalists are all on the Republican side, no, that's too simple. The fact is that Democrats have their hands in those pockets just as well as Republicans do, and it'll be a long time, I think, before California is affordable again.
Art, any closing thoughts?
No, I think it was an important night tonight. I think that overall things worked out the way that the polls showed. I don't think we had many upsets across the country like we did in 2016 with Donald Trump. So I think that it restores a lot of confidence in the polling and in the things that are bellwethers. There were a couple swing districts throughout the country. They came out the way that most people predicted. So I think that overall it was a very predictable night, and it's both parties walk away with some wins and some losses. But overall, I think the Democrats picking up the House of Representatives is the big story of the night.
And the big winner was democracy.
Yeah, good way to put it.
We're going to end it there. I want to thank both of you, Ruben Navarrete, Art Castaneras. Your insight, your analysis was invaluable this evening, and I thank you.
Thank you.
And handing it off to you, Ebony, one last time.
Thank you, Amitha. You can find complete coverage online at kpbs.org. We have more on the primary results tomorrow on Morning Edition on KPBS Radio. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful night.